There is linguistic evidence that ties Mesoamerica to the Near East as well. The 9/8. Brian Stubbs is an expert in the Ute-Aztecan languages, has been comparing them not just with Hebrew, but with languages cognate to Hebrew, such as Arabic. And he has concluded that there are a lot of remnants of the Hebrew language that one can find in the Ute-Azteco language.
As a linguist, I have found considerable evidence of Hebrew and Egyptian in at least one language family, Ute-Aztecan. I have not yet published my findings for the linguistic community. The Ute-Aztecan language family is a language, about 30 related languages that are descended from what linguists call Proto-Ute-Aztecan. Their geographic location ranges from Idaho in the north to Mexico City in the south, basically. There are a few dialects in other places. Actually, what I find in Ute-Aztecan is two different dialects of Northwest Semitic and quite a bit of Egyptian that has the same sound correspondences as one of those dialects of Northwest Semitic. Northwest Semitic is the branch of Semitic that Hebrew comes out of, Hebrew and Phoenician and so forth. Now that's extremely interesting because that's exactly what the Nephite merger would be, is this merger of two different dialects of Northwest Semitic, one of them having a significant amount of Egyptian in them. And so it's extremely consistent, in fact so consistent that the probability of that happening by chance would be very low. Another thing we need to keep in mind about the Mulekites is that we don't know how they got here, except they obviously crossed the ocean somehow, but the Phoenicians were the prominent seafaring people of that time near Palestine. And in fact, the fact that the people of Mulek named their main waterway the river Sidon, well, Sidon is a major port city of the Phoenicians.
The history that has been erased in our nation, and in particular with the Native Americans, happened because it didn't fit the story they created, Manifest Destiny. It only works when Indians were savages, and they had to have savages for commerce and government to expand. The ancient artifacts prove otherwise. Why aren't we looking into those? Peter 𝙤𝙤𝙀𝙁, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box that was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew, they said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismissed the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history?
So a lot of the Latin, Spanish-conquered countries have a large population of Sephardic and Native American mixtures there. And as we started studying and researching a lot of our traditions, now this isn't all tribes, we don't speak for every tribal nation, but we found similarities in our linguistics. We have Hebrew words in our language, celebrations of new moon festivals.
My people have many things in common as far as the traditions and sacred things concerning, for example, there was a celebration of new moon. There was a 7th day of rest. We didn't eat swine. There were cities of refuge. We celebrated 7 sacred feasts during the year. And so there were many commonalities that we found seemed very similar. And this is chronicled in by a man in the 1700s named 𝙝𝙩𝙩𝙨. You can read about it in a book called Out of the Flame.
He was one of many. And there was a man by the name of Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel back in about 200-300 years ago, who also believed that there was a connection between the scattering of the tribes and the First Nations people.
So the theory would be that when the 10 lost tribes were scattered, some of them ended up coming to America? Is that the idea?
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. Like I said, there's so many things in the traditions, the customs, the spirituality, that just go beyond coincidence.
For example, my people's traditional name, the Cherokee's traditional name for ourselves is 𝙤𝙤𝙦𝙤𝙤, which means the principal people of Yah.
And the Cheyenne tribe in the Americas called themselves 𝙝𝙤𝙦𝙦𝙦, which means people of the fringes.
Really?
And their cousin tribes, the Shoshone, whose symbol is a rose, we find Shoshana, which is a rose.
Now
1882, 1883. This is John Wesley Howell. This is an original copy. John Wesley Howell in 1789. Again, Powell. This is the director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian Institute. He said this: artifacts found prior to Christopher Columbus's arrival would be considered illegitimate by the Smithsonian. Only the savage Indian culture would be observed, and this created the artificial barrier to science. Only the savage. Science was colluding with government because of commerce, and religion was involved. Now, why do I tell you all this stuff? Not because I'm an Indian expert or anything else. You got to do your own homework. I just found out about this stuff. I'm amazed by it. To find more, visit the website lostcivilizationdvd.com.
Many people praise Columbus for discovering the New World. However, how can you discover something where there are already people here? Who were these people? They were Israelites from the tribe of Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Ephraim, and Manasseh. How do we know that they're Israelites? Because the curses of Deuteronomy 28 apply to them as well. Specifically Deuteronomy 28:41, which says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." Many children, boys and girls, went into captivity, whether it was sex slavery or chattel slavery. Also, let's look at Deuteronomy 28:43, which says, "The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." Many people in the Caribbean island are poor, impoverished, and are ruled over by the white Europeans. Gentiles, we do not celebrate Christopher Columbus. We celebrate the Most High. Shalom.